Thanks so much for checking out a weekly segment that I do here on Reforge Gaming with my friend 30 and Still Gaming. Check him out, linked below at 30NSG. And we're going to be discussing the future of Xbox after the Xbox Activision deal got blocked by the CMA. There's a lot of question marks surrounding what's the future hold for Xbox. They're obviously going to appeal the CMA's decision. The deal's certainly not done yet, but it maybe is developing into a conversation about what are they going to do next. There was this Phil Spencer letter that he sent, Bobby Kodak's weighing in, and Brad Smith, and they're insulting the government and the regulators. I don't know if that's a great strategy, but they're doing it. And
it's a bold move, Cotton. It's a bold move.
It is. I'm going to end the previous stream about Armored Core and bring everybody over with a redirect. Make sure as you come over and as you're watching the past broadcast, hit that like button. Help us get those milestones of likes. It helps the video perform well and find new people. And every week we do this. We take a gaming topic and we just kind of chop it up. And the big thing that happened this week that completely bumped a Diablo stream that I'll still do at some point in time because we still have it written up and it's ready to go. And I think it's going to be a good show. But it got bumped because the CMA blocked, and they blocked based on cloud. Now, before we kind of get into the future of Xbox and where we see things sort of heading, because many people are wondering, like, what's the plan now? What are you going to do if this deal doesn't go through? Many of the Xbox fans are extremely upset. The games coming from Activision Blizzard are still coming to market. Like that, this isn't going to change that.
Right.
They're just not going to be on Game Pass. So you've got plenty of time. Set some money aside while you wait for these games to come out. So when this news hit, Mike, before we kind of talk future of Xbox, let's set the runway here. What did you think when you saw this? Because many people literally night before were saying, this thing's closing. I have insiders telling me it's closing. And then, boom, blocked because of the cloud market is still emerging, and they don't want this merger to take place because of that.
Well, one, I said this last week. I stopped really caring because it's been like 9 months, and I'm just like, I stopped covering the coverage myself. I started picking it back up because of the block. But I just looked at it as, okay, because, yes, I play on Xbox, but I'm a gamer. I don't care where the games fall. So if Xbox buys this or Microsoft buys them or doesn't, I'm still going to buy Diablo. I'm still going to go buy or play the games that they come out with, regardless if they're on Game Pass or not. So it doesn't do anything for me personally, so I don't really have an attachment. I was a little shocked because, again, all these analysts and the internet says it's going to go through, but I think they were under the impression it's going to go through because no one was talking about the cloud aspect. Just last month in March, like the tail end of March, the CMA kind of brought up the cloud gaming part, but the whole strategy that Jim Ryan was doing was Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty for like 9 months. And that's everything that everyone was talking about, even though Microsoft is looking for the mobile aspect, not even the cloud, just the mobile aspect. That's why they're picking up Activision Blizzard King. But we were all kind of like a sleight of hand, right? We're all thinking of the Call of Duty thing. And then all of a sudden the CMA comes out and says, yeah, we're kind of worried about this cloud gaming stuff. And they're like, hold on. You mentioned Call of Duty, and we signed deals with all these other people. We were doing what you were concerned about. No one brought up the concern of cloud gaming, so they kind of left it on the wayside, and then here they are. And they're 100% correct. They never said anything about cloud gaming, and if they buy Activision, are they going to raise the price of Game Pass? Is it going to be more, less competitive for people? So they had a point, but it was like a blind side, and everyone was like, wait, what do you mean? And then everyone's freaking out now because they think it's over, and it's far from over. It's far from over.
Yeah, when the CMA provisional findings hit, I remember covering that and telling people, I read through it, and I said, okay, they're making Call of Duty central to saying, hey, console, with respect to console, we don't think there's going to be a significant lessening of competition as long as Call of Duty stays on PlayStation. They sort of saw Call of Duty as being central. And I said, that might actually be pretty good for PlayStation. That means, at least for the foreseeable future, from the regulator's perspective, Call of Duty needs to stay put. But then they said, the next thing we're moving on to is cloud. And I said, this could go a very different direction because cloud is just getting started. And about a week later, I covered Google. Like, Google took issue with Microsoft, not in cloud gaming, but in cloud services. And they're like, man, these guys are really anti-competitive. They basically just offer a contract to anybody complaining, and then the people complaining go quiet. And it's like, that's not, you're making that ecosystem and that market orbit around Microsoft. Like, come on. And now these 10-year deals are coming out, and we can see them, and Microsoft was going to keep 100% of the revenue. And many people are saying, well, but that's how cloud services work. You buy the game from Microsoft, and you go play it on the cloud service. And I'm like, okay, but what happens if I go to that cloud service? According to NVIDIA's website, I have my own personal storefront. So I can buy games when I'm there, or when I'm in the game that I already own, I can buy microtransactions. And the cloud services, we're going to see none of that revenue. It was all going to go to Microsoft.
Yeah, this morning I was having a little conversation in my Discord about that. I was a little confused by the way it read, because I was under the impression, I was like, okay, well, if it's a service, this is why Stadia failed, right? Because Stadia didn't have that many games, and the games they did, they had to sign those contracts, individual publishers and stuff like that. Where what NVIDIA is doing, and what is it, Booster? I think that's what the other company is called, right?
Boosteroid.
Yeah, Boosteroid. What they're doing is that they're signing with Microsoft, and because Microsoft's going to have all of these games curated basically, and they're making the deals for Game Pass, and then they're taking those games and be able to stream them over there, plus whatever games they like, all the Activision games would be over there as well, just like a storefront, right? They would get a percentage of the actual game that they're buying through there, but they're using Microsoft and the deal to drive people over to get the service over there. So not only are you paying for Game Pass, the $10 a month, but then you're also paying for GeForce Now each month. You're paying for Boosteroids every single month. So you're paying, I don't know what those cost. I'm assuming they cost like $15, $20 or whatever. So now you're taking like basically $30, $35 a month between Game Pass and the streaming provider that they're doing to play. So that's where they're making their money from. So I kind of see that they don't get any of the microtransactions and stuff like that, because they're driving people to use those devices, and that's why they're making that deal and that's why they're signing the deal, I would assume. But yeah, it is kind of weird that they're not getting anything out of the microtransactions. But then again, lots of games that come out, we've talked about this in the past, a lot of games that come out are not receiving any kind of DLC. They don't have microtransactions. They're just games that they put on Game Pass, and they just kind of live there, right?
Yeah, and we got a couple super chats. One from Mazzaro saying, he appreciates me getting guest spots on shows. I've been killing it, thank you. And then another $5 from Ryan saying, it seems like a lot of backroom deals are coming back to bite Microsoft as a whole. Well, the FTC wanted to see these 10-year deals, because they said, if you're going to use these 10-year deals as a defense, we want to see them. And Microsoft just sits there. And FTC had to file a motion to compel to see those deals. I mean, that's telling. That like, oh yeah, we're doing these 10-year deals, and the FTC is like, well, let us see them. And Microsoft they just sit there and they decline to hand them over. So the FTC wins their motion to compel, so they're going to see them too. And the CMA gets a look at them, and they're like, you're trying to make this industry, as it emerges, you want it to orbit around you. And listen, I'm not faulting Microsoft for that. That's a smart play. Like, cloud gaming is so fresh and new. If they're sort of the premier platform, they're endemic and they're just woven into it, that gives them a lot of power. Because Japan has made their own projections about where cloud gaming is going. Going to go from like 1 billion yen to like 13.8 billion yen. Right. Now, that's not a ton of money when you look at it dollar amount. It's like, 100 million or something. But that's still just in 2 years, they expect that kind of growth. And Alapark says the FTC reported that they haven't had a response from them in the last 24 requests. Right, so that's why they submitted the motion to compel. There's a reason that Microsoft's just not handing those documentation and those documents over. Because I said this last night on the podcast I was on. If you're in the position of power, you are not going to go out here and do a PR campaign and sign all these contracts and complain and bellyache on Twitter. I couldn't believe how unprofessional everybody was. Brad Smith, Bobby Kotick, Lulu Chang. It's like, you are not arguing from the position of power, and it is blatantly obvious. Anybody knows that in a negotiation, the person who just keeps talking is the one who is desperate. They're the one that's in the weak position. The person that just sits back and stays quiet, they're the one in the position of power. And that's why Sony's been frustratingly quiet here. Everybody said, oh, Sony's the one that wanted everybody looking at Call of Duty. And I'm like, that was Phil Spencer back in September. Like, he took that into the public. He said, oh, we offered Sony 3 extra years. And now these 10-year deals are coming out for the cloud. I'm like, well, no wonder Sony rejected the 10-year contract. They're like, this is a joke. Sony knows what Microsoft's doing. That's why they wouldn't accept the deal.
Well, is the deal, the 10-year deal, was it the cloud deal, or was it just the 10-year deal to get Call of Duty and Activision games like on Nintendo, right? Because Nintendo's not the cloud thing. It's Nintendo's just putting Call of Duty on Nintendo.
Yeah. The 10-year cloud deals they're not the same.
Yeah, they're not the same. Okay.
If anything, I think it's an indication of like Microsoft's goal here is to protect themselves. They're not going to hand out all these contracts that are bad for them. They're going to be good for them. That's the whole point. That the CMA got to look at this stuff, and they're like, no. This would require such a large scope of oversight. We can't let this go through.
But the players that are in the cloud gaming space right now, there's Amazon with Luna, right? We had Google with Stadia. There's Sony with their PlayStation Premium. There's Boosteroids, and then there's GeForce Now. I think does online live still exist? Is that still around? You know what I'm talking about? It was like streaming cloud gaming like 12, 15 years ago. And I forget if it's still, I think it's on live. I think that's what it was called. Anyway, like Boosteroid and NVIDIA both signed a contract, and they're the other ones. Like Xbox right now, or I should say Microsoft, is what, 60-70% of the cloud gaming market. And then we have Sony, and I think GeForce was at like 20%. Then you had Boosteroids somewhere just under that, and then you had Google and Amazon at the 5% range. So if the other people that are actually in the space right now are taking the contract, shouldn't the CMA kind of look at that and go, okay, well, that's competitive. There's already other companies. One's at 20% of the market. Shouldn't they look at that as going, okay, well, they are being competitive. They are giving the games. I mean, I don't know. I'm asking a question. You know what I mean? Like, shouldn't they look at the deals they're making with the people in that space as something that they're actually making competition? They're bringing the people in that space.
Well, it's a platform, right? Like, that's what a cloud service is. It's a platform that allows you to engage with your games. Okay, so that was the thing I blasted NVIDIA for on Twitter. They were basically defending this and saying, oh, the CMA is blocking this. This was going to be such a great deal for us. We were going to have all these new games added to our library. It's like, pick up the phone and talk to Activision Blizzard and do a deal. Like, what are you doing? You need Microsoft for this? You have your own cloud-based service, NVIDIA. So all you got to do is talk to Activision Blizzard and broker a deal to have their games on your platform. Like, I don't understand. Why do you need Microsoft to do that? Like, obviously, Microsoft initiates in the buy and then initiates that conversation. But that would be my question is, why is Activision Blizzard and NVIDIA not talking right now? Why, like, Activision Blizzard makes money. If their game is available in more places, that's bigger reach. That's bigger top of mind. Like, everybody's seeing you everywhere. Anybody who opens up a cloud service or their phone or their console, they're seeing your property. And everybody's acting like, well, without this deal, innovation's going to be squashed. What innovation? We were just going to hand a bunch of property to Microsoft. There was no innovation there. They were just going to put that property on their planned services and storefront. That's not innovation. You're just shuffling inventory to one warehouse.
Yeah, it's like saying I have a black friend, and then they're like, yeah, see, they're with it.
Right.
They're with me.
Well, and when I looked at this deal from the very beginning, I thought, okay, they want all this property because, Microsoft is in the business of software, right? That's what they're in the business of. They want software distribution. They're going to treat video games the way they treat software. I think that's one of the main reasons their games have turned out so poorly lately, and they don't have that creative, pull because they treat games like software. In the realm of what's the future for Xbox, there's a lot of speculation now. Right before the CMA blocks, the day before they go out there with their earnings call, and we hear that Xbox hardware is down 30%. And when we hear that, everybody started hand-waving and saying, well, that's not a big deal. Microsoft's pushing into the cloud and mobile. And then the very next day, the CMA blocks based on cloud, and everyone's like, cloud's not a big deal. Well, what do you mean? Apparently, Microsoft's setting their sights on cloud and mobile and an ecosystem. They're not worried about hardware anymore. With that 30% dip in hardware distribution and this deal's under threat, where's Microsoft going? Many people are thinking, man, they're getting out of the console game. They've already confirmed there's another console coming, but I mean, I don't know. Knowing Microsoft, they could pull the plug on that.
I mean, if the deal doesn't go through, where are they going, right? They're looking for mobile games. That was the main reason they were getting Activision Blizzard King. They were looking to get into that mobile market because I looked at an article just recently where it showed how many gamers are in every region, right? And the EU only has 30. I say only, but in the bigger picture, it has 38, almost 39 million gamers in the UK, which is in the 4 regions of Wales, Scotland, UK, and like in that area, and so really in the bigger picture, they're a small chunk of change where China's got like 770 million gamers and Germany's got like 49 point, they're bigger markets out there. So I mean, you kind of saw it just before about 2 weeks ago. Didn't Xbox come out or Microsoft come out and say that they signed a deal for 40 new countries to get Game Pass in those 40 other countries? I think they knew ahead of time that this was going to go through, and they're pushing forward with trying to get into other avenues of space. So when you look at this, what are they going to do? Well, if they don't get Activision Blizzard, they have $69 billion that they can still throw at other companies. So if they don't buy Activision Blizzard, they can buy smaller companies up. And if they keep buying the smaller companies up, in the bigger grand scheme of things, sure, they might not be these AAA companies, but again, you look at Game Pass, it's not about the AAA games. It's about the Redfall. It's about that Minecraft Dungeons, Minecraft Legends, right? Forza's a big game, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a niche market with the racing game and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. Every once in a while, you'll get that Halo that comes out, the big AAA game that kind of bombed on them, but now you get Starfield, which is the big AAA game that's coming out for them as well. So I think their strategy is just to get more smaller companies to make more games for Game Pass, or they even go even further than that, and Sony people would hate this, right? And I'm not saying this is what they should do, but this is what they could do. They just throw that $69 billion and get massive exclusives just for Xbox, right? The same thing that Sony does with their games that, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander, but when one does it, the other one can't do it, and then they give them crap for it. But if Microsoft has a lot of money, they could just throw at companies and be like, yeah, let's get an exclusive title for, let's say, the next Hogwarts Legacy, right? Comes out and they're like, hey, Hogwarts Legacy 2, exclusive for Xbox. Only, they could do that.
I'm so glad you said that because I'm seeing that theory get floated around. Thank you for the $2 super chat tip, Billy. Everybody's acting like, well, if this deal doesn't go through, then Microsoft's just going to throw all that money behind exclusives, and then Sony's going to get a taste of their own medicine. And the reason that I don't think that has a snowball's chance in hell of happening is very simple. Number one, most of the games in production right now that'll be arriving in the next 3, 4, and 5 years, they've already chosen where they're going to land. And I highly doubt anybody is making games for Xbox unless they had already planned on being multi-plat. I think PlayStation 5 is going to garner a lot of inadvertent exclusives because I think people are looking at the Series S, they're looking at the hardware distribution of Xbox, and they're like, oh my gosh, they are absolutely... Xbox Series consoles are now on pace to fall below Xbox One levels. And developers and publishers are going to take that into consideration because you got to do more work when you bring your games to Xbox because you got to optimize for the Series S and the X. That's extra development time for a platform that is floundering right now. And Sony is blowing the doors off. They're just exploding. Their hardware distribution has just taken off. The other thing to consider is, let's say Hogwarts 2 is not in development and Microsoft does what you said. They're going to go to Warner Brothers. They're going to throw them this massive amount of money and say, hey, we want to make this an exclusive Xbox title. Warner Brothers is going to look at the projections of distribution and how much Sony is taking off. They're going to look at the Nintendo Switch, and then they're going to look at Xbox, and they're going to be like, you could never offer us enough money for an exclusive deal. You just couldn't. I think if you look at Call of Duty, there's proof of this, right? Like, you can't write a check big enough Activision is on record as to actively avoid Game Pass because it's cannibalistic to sales. So Microsoft couldn't write a check fat enough for Call of Duty to go to Game Pass. So this idea of like, oh, we're going to take $69 billion and throw it behind exclusive deals, I got news for you. Nobody's taking that deal because it's clear you guys are really not in a great spot as a gaming platform right now.
True, but what they could do is time exclusive. They don't have to do like exclusive. They could do time exclusive, right? We get you for 3 months. You make extra content for us for whatever certain period. You know what I mean? Like Sony does it right now, right? Sony does it right now. And the reason they get the deals is because they have more of the market, right? They have, I think, what is it, 46, 47% of the market? I think actually in recent sales, they're at like 80% of the market for console sales right now, right? But in the grand scheme of things, they're 40% of the market, where Nintendo and Xbox are like 27 and 24% or something like that. So, and again, I'm rattling these numbers off from past articles I've read. I don't have anything in front of me right now, so forgive me if I'm off by a couple of points or whatever. But yeah, so they're like 40% of the market. So the gamers look at that, or publishers look at that, and the studios look at that, and they go, "Well, Sony is the leader of the consoles, so that's why they make these deals, because they have 200 million units out there. They have 122 million with PlayStation 4s and whatnot. So they have the bigger part of the market. Well, if it swings over in a couple years, right?" After the development cycle, that we're talking 3-4 years now down the road, and cloud gaming is now not a $6 billion business, but now it's a $21 billion business, or it's a $85 billion business, and Microsoft is holding the cards now, and they're at 60% or 50% of the market. Well, then they call the shots, right? And then companies will start going towards them. Right now, as we stand, we're sitting in front of the forest, and we're standing in front of that tree, and Sony is that tree in front of us, right? Sony is that company that is leading the market of consoles, and Microsoft is trying to make themselves that tree for the cloud gaming service and moving forward. So I think they're trying to jockey position and kind of just, move it over, because that's where technology is going, and right. Sony's just trying to grasp on, because right now they have the win, they have the lead. And Microsoft knows they have the loss, and they're trying to project something in the future. So what's happening right now with consoles could definitely happen again with the cloud gaming, and Microsoft could be the leader, or Amazon comes in and makes big chunks of money, and they start getting people on their platform, and so on and so forth.
Well, and I think that harkens back to when they said they don't see themselves competing with Sony, but Amazon and Google. It's like they kind of told us where they were going. It's like, yeah, right. It's almost like, yeah, we're not interested in this console stuff anymore. Like we're not gonna win that race ever. So we're setting our sights on a different ecosystem. I want to answer Zubair's question, and I want to thank a super chat. Zubair says, aren't there millions of people with Xbox? Why would you just ignore that market? You're in the business of developing. The need to develop should not be a roadblock. But you have to consider all the dialogue that we have about when you make a game for one platform, it makes everything go faster. That keeps production costs down, which increases your margins. So they're always going to weigh how much extra work do we have to do to bring our game to the Xbox ecosystem, because you have to develop and port for two systems. You have to make sure that it's going to run on the Series S and the X. And you're doing all of that for a consoles that has really bad market share. Its projections are terrible right now. And as a production company, as a publisher or developer, you cannot be looking at the public narrative and thinking, well, that's a platform we want to make our game for, because it doesn't even seem like Microsoft believes in the console. We have people theorizing that they're devoting more to cloud with the Silicon than even producing the Series X. I mean, that's what Jez Corden put in his article. It's like, well, I don't know if he got that information from somewhere, but if that's even remotely true, then you're going to consider that as a publisher. Like, why would we make a game over there? PlayStation is committed. They're on a rise. There's rumors about the PS5 accelerating ray tracing. Developers love ray tracing because it speeds up development time. Like, PlayStation's about to be the premier next-gen console, or you could just say next-gen platform, because developers are going to love making games for PlayStation. The super chat was from M's Odyssey, and this lines up with what Mike was just saying. He says, Azure dominates cloud infrastructure. Microsoft knows that if you own the road, cloud, you can dictate the number of cars, the amount of traffic, the tolls, etc.
Exactly.
See, such an excellent point. And guys, if you're enjoying the broadcast, so many people here, make sure you're smashing that like button. It helps this video find more people. It takes you just a second to click it. So I think that's such an excellently made point. And I think so many people miss that in this debate. They're like, cloud's not even that big. Cloud's not even that big. I'm like, you're literally making the point. That's literally what the CMA said. They're like, this market is emerging, and we don't want to have to be hands-on here. That's bad for a market as it emerges. Right. Microsoft, you already have a foothold in cloud. Giving you a larger foothold in cloud would require ongoing global oversight, and we just don't think that that's good for the market. I have a very strong hunch that the EU and the FTC are going to agree with that. They're going to say, yeah, we want to be hands off. The FTC's already super big tech merger, let alone, so now we got to actually have oversight and regulate a global cloud market. Why? Because Microsoft failed for 20 years in gaming. We have to let them do this? Like, it's a completely backwards argument every time it comes up.
Yeah, I don't know why people keep saying that the 360 days are over. I don't know why anyone's bringing stuff like that up. I'm talking about technology here, right? Technology and Xbox and Microsoft, they're the leader. Apple and Microsoft have been leading the way for my entire life, right? I'm 40, I'll be 45 in 2 weeks, okay? And they've been here my entire life. They've innovated and moved technology forward. The reason you have a smartphone in your pocket, which is a computer system that wasn't there before 2007. Before that, you had a rotary phone and pagers and crappy cell phones. Okay, now you have an entire computer in your pocket. Back then, you're like, there's no way that's going to happen. It's such a small market, people with pagers and cell phones. And now you look at it, and everybody on planet Earth, there's like, 3 billion devices or whatever that's happening now. Not everybody, obviously, but lots of people. The market has emerged, and that's where Microsoft is doing. Like they said, Azure, Sony's online service system is running through Microsoft. Okay, they're running through Microsoft. They signed a deal like 4 years ago for like a 9 or 10 year deal for that. Okay, so they don't. Everyone in this chat, I don't want to say everyone. Most of you guys in this chat are thinking old school, that it's a console versus a console, and this is no longer that. This is a industry technology going one way and the console trying to survive. If 5 years from now, all of a sudden consoles are gone, they don't make a PlayStation 6. I know they are, but they don't make a PlayStation 6. They don't make the next Xbox Series, double Z, whatever it is, okay? They're moving forward with technology, and that is what they're trying to establish. It's like the gold rush back out when everyone came out to the West, right? Get your position, jockey for position, grab your land, grab the gold, try to become as rich as possible. That's what these companies are doing. They're evolving and trying to stay with it. Sony is not on the same playing field as Microsoft. PlayStation is destroying Xbox, but Microsoft is 10 times the size or whatever it is than Sony, the company itself. They're trying as a company, as technology, to move forward. This is not about Xbox versus PlayStation. This is Microsoft trying to dominate a market that's not here yet, and they're trying to establish their foothold in it. Everyone has to go through Papa Microsoft here to get the piece.
Well, and I think that is something that was made such a great point the other night on Brap from Game Logic. He said this shouldn't be happening. He's like, this is exactly what happens when the market just sort of is allowed to do what it's supposed to do. He's like, Sony, at its current size and market cap versus Microsoft's current size and market cap, this shouldn't be happening. They are kicking the crap out of Microsoft, and it doesn't even stand to reason. You talk about a David and Goliath situation. That's exactly what this is, and I think that's what's so funny is all last year I had to hear about how big Microsoft was, how deep Big Daddy Microsoft's pockets were, and it's like that stands as an indictment and an embarrassment here. They shouldn't be in this situation. It's awful. It's like watching somebody they've got all the money, they come from the right side of town, they got all the opportunities, and they just fail. Bad GPA, and they're terrible on the sports team. All these opportunities, they just squander them. Like that's what we're watching. We're watching the person who had everything laid before them just completely screw it up, and now they're trying to buy their way out of it. And when I look at Microsoft, just last night, I was asked about my video game history. And, what was my first console? And I was like, oh, it's a Coleco. And then I got back into console gaming from, Nintendo home, and then I was a PC home. And then I got back into console gaming with the 360. And Salty was like, oh, what's your favorite Xbox game? And I was like, I actually don't know, because I don't know what are Xbox games. Other than Halo and Forza, I can't think of like Xbox games like Gears, okay. But I played Gears on PC before I played it on Xbox. So I had to go with Ori. I was like, I guess Ori and the Blind Forest, I guess if we consider that an Xbox game, but now that it's kind of everywhere, I don't think of it that way.
Yeah.
They don't have that killer app. They don't have that identity driving catalog of games where you're like, absolutely, this is my favorite Xbox title. Now, maybe in a year or two, I'll say Hellblade 2 if that game comes out, and just please let it not be in bad shape. I'm so worried about Hellblade 2. In the umbrella of, what we're supposed to be talking about today, future of Xbox. And I'm thinking, I just can't think of a game. I can't think of a killer app. Many people have suggested that Microsoft go third party. They basically become a publisher because they're not winning the ecosystem. They're not winning the console race, right? Because if they don't get ABK, their ecosystem's in a bad spot, like a real bad spot. Because that was the question I kept asking people is, without ABK, what do you have? What does Microsoft have for you down the pipeline? We don't have dates for Fable, Avowed, Everwild. We have no idea when these games are coming. So apart from ABK, we're just sort of in this holding pattern. So if they don't get ABK, their ecosystem's in a bad place. Do you think that that's a potential reality? They just become a publisher and they're just trying to, they start trying to put their games everywhere?
Sure. I mean, why not? Real quick, I just want to answer a question or a statement. People are saying that I said PlayStation's using Azura. That never came out of my mouth. If you want to rewind the video, I said Sony is using Azura. I never said PlayStation is using Azura. I said Sony has a contract with Microsoft for Azura. So I'm not giving out bad info. I'm giving out accurate info with Sony and Microsoft having a conversation or having a contract with that. As far as if Azura is being used by PlayStation Plus, I never said that. So to answer your question, do I think that they'll be a publisher? Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, if they go belly up and they're not competing in the console space or the streaming space, then why not just be a publisher and then make those games and put them out on as many platforms as possible? They're just trying to get a chunk of the pie. You know what I mean? They're not putting everything into this. This is just one branch of the company trying to make as much money as possible for the company, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to get in. They have many avenues to get what they're getting, and this is just one avenue is the game publishing space.
Hyde says that Sony's valuation is 6.25% of Microsoft. Microsoft is 16 times bigger. Yeah, it's truly remarkable, the size difference between the companies. Eridimus with a $5 super chat tip says, Microsoft is also leading the way with AI. In their latest Gamecom, they were forwarding the way for developers to utilize those AI tools in their games. I think the intersection of AI and game development is certainly on the horizon. I think machine learning technology, as it continues to be harnessed, could be used for a lot of automation with procedural generation. You could set parameters and you could use machine learning to create environments. You could use machine learning to write very basic lines for NPCs, while they're walking around. And then it would obviously get more sophisticated over time. I don't know how long that's going to take. Many of the speculation around AI in gaming is 10 to 20 years out. Obviously, Microsoft...
No way.
Is diving in. No way?
No way. No way. Exponentially, it's going to go up faster and faster. You think it's going to take 20 years for someone to have AI start doing stuff? I mean, there's already AI
I mean, at the level of sophistication that people are predicting, like AI systems building worlds, building scripts and lines for NPCs, like I think that's 20 years out. It'll get that sophisticated. In the near future, it'll be more menial. It'll be more like they'll have it managing like small systems and aspects of the game and the NPC's movement and stuff.
I'm going to disagree and say half that time. I'm going to say 10 years.
Okay. I think there'll definitely be a phase 1, phase 2. Like I think in 10 years there'll be a phase 1 where lots of companies are utilizing machine learning in certain ways. I think in 20 years you're going to have entire subsystems within games just run by machine learning.
Sure. I'm just saying because the more people that get onto the AI and start learning the AI and start feeding the AI is learning faster and faster, and it's I say half that time. I mean, obviously, we're both guessing. We'll find out in 10 to 20 years.
I think the reason it'll take longer is machine learning and AI will advance and compound on itself, but integration into development systems of games, that's where it'll take longer. Because you have to create new systems for that integration. Like, systems integration is really challenging. It's something that a tech company I used to work for did. Like, bringing one system to talk to another is actually pretty challenging. So all of the existing engines and tool sets will have to be able to integrate with everything. So as fast as it's developing, it would need to develop within the gaming world at the same time.
Well, yeah, but just the demo they showed for the Unreal Engine, right? Just a couple of weeks ago, like a month ago, when they showed the procedurally generated, where they're doing that Rivia car commercial, basically they showed, and they said anything past this point, it's procedurally generating the world outside of it. And I understand there's no like code or script with actually NPCs or anything there, but when the guy was moving the mountain around, it would procedurally generate if it should put platforms or anything, and it would automatically do that. So I think for the AI, for let's say you make an open world game and you have like a Skyrim, and all of a sudden the NPCs are getting dialogue, and not only do they have dialogue, but it's procedurally generated dialogue. So let's say you have options to pick from, and then you hit something, it automatically makes that line of dialogue for that specific thing. I think we're 3 to 5 years off from that, from people experimenting and getting it, maybe not to be seamless. I mean, games right now are not seamless, but I just think it's more exponentially faster. Technology is insane the way it goes. I mean, just look how far the phone came from 2007 to now. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's leaps and bounds. And just AI from 6 months ago to now is extremely different. So I understand what you're saying. I just think humanity is just moving so fast, man. I think 10 years max, and we're going to look at it and be blown away. Well,
it's hard to know because what we're talking about is like super nebulous. So like I'm saying 10 to 20 years for it to get super sophisticated.
It'll definitely be there at 20 years. Yeah. But
yeah,
I'm just saying, I think it'll be there sooner.
It'll be super sophisticated in like 20 years. I think in about 10 years, you will see dialogue systems. Essentially, what you would do is you would create all these parameters and like shove it into an NPC, and you would say, this NPC pulls from this library of background information. You almost give it an encyclopedia of potential responses, and then you give it language parameters. So then when you say, I'm not going to go on this mission for you because I hate you, he knows that you just did a denial with aggression, and he's going to pull from a bank of potential parameters to respond to you. And that'll certainly show up in games. As far as Microsoft using that to leverage itself in the gaming market, it's going to be one of those situations where it's just like they're so far behind. ABK was their chance to catch up. So without ABK, that's why I feel like a lot of people are speculating, what's the future of the Xbox games division? What's the future of Phil Spencer? Because you got Phil Spencer just 5 years ago saying Forza and State of Decay, they sold better because they were on Game Pass. And now we're seeing reports coming out, first-party titles selling very poorly on Xbox, and everyone's like, that's not a surprise, bro. It's on Game Pass. And it's like, okay, but 5 years ago, Phil Spencer said the opposite of that. If he made those assurances to executives, and now 5 years in, that plan's not coming to fruition, baby. We're not getting double dip. We're not getting this Game Pass subscriber base and this top-of-mind marketing that leads to purchases. So he could be staring down the barrel of like look, man, you made it seem like this is where we were heading, and we didn't get there. And ABK was our chance to get out. And if they don't get ABK, Microsoft loves to shut things down. Do you think that's a possible reality?
I don't think that we're going to see maybe the next consoles, like that's it. And they're like, all right, we're bowing out of the actual consoles because consoles cost money. And every time they sell a console, they lose money. Well, they're not losing money with the streaming service, right? They pay, I don't know, a couple dollars per thing, per server, whatever, per account, but they're making 8-10 times fold, and they're not doing anything, right, with the cloud gaming. So I don't know. I think I look at this as the digital compared to physical, right? Everyone, before we had digital, everyone's like, I'm not buying digital. There's no way I'm buying digital. I'm buying this hard copy 100%. And from 2017 to 2018, it swapped. They thought it was going to take 5 years before everyone started going over to digital, like 80%. Literally in 1 year, it went from 80% physical, 20% digital, and swapped in 1 year. It went 20% physical, 80% digital. So I don't know. I feel like I don't think Microsoft would be like, oh yeah, we're scrapping it. They're not Google. Google throws things off to the side. They like test it out for a week or 2 years. They're like, let's just toss off to the side, right? Microsoft, I think, is just one piece of the puzzle in their grander scheme of things. And if they fail with the Xbox, sure. But who are they going to bring in with a different, like if they kick Phil out and they're like, Phil, you disappointed us, they're going to have to bring someone else in, and it's going to take 4 or 5 years before they can shift to the next plan, whatever they have, right? So I think they have to kind of see this through and Phil's vision or whatever it is. And look, Jim Ryan, Phil Spencer, I don't own a multi-trillion-dollar company, right? I don't run that. I sit in this chair and give you my opinions. These guys are in their position because you would assume that they're good at what they do. They get the respect and that people trust them and what the decisions they make. And there's a lot of people depending on all of these leaders of these companies. And I can't imagine they're just going willy-nilly, just kind of having one plan all in one basket and not having a backup plan. You know what I mean? So I think Phil knows what he's doing. And I think he has not only a plan B, but a plan C, D, and E, if things don't go their way.
Well, he recently sent an email to staff basically saying, we have plans going forward with or without Activision. Many people see that as a bit of a white flag, like he's basically preparing. Like this, it's almost as if in his mind, there's a pretty good chance this deal's not going through, and we're still going forward with our plans no matter what. Like we still have games, we still have an ecosystem, we still have Game Pass, and we're going forward. If you're an Xbox owner like me, like I've got a Series X, I believe you do too, do you not? You have a Series X?
I have an X and an S and a PlayStation 4 and a Nintendo, and I have them all except the PlayStation 5.
So when you hear him say that, and you're looking at this showcase in June, you got a Starfield showcase, and you've got an Xbox showcase. We already had an Xbox Bethesda showcase a year ago that's turning out to be just a bad punchline. 25 promised titles that were supposed to be here by June. 10 of them have not made it. 10 of the 25, getting close to half. If you add in Redfall might as well be on the list of not making it because it's not ready. It's coming out, it's not ready. Okay, that's the theme right now, right? Jedi Survivor wasn't ready either. That's nobody's title. That's not PlayStation or Xbox, but it's just another title that wasn't ready.
Yep, it's the industry. Yeah,
it's the industry right now. Like we're still not out from underneath the shadow of 2020. I still don't think we've gotten out underneath that shadow. It just was so detrimental to production lines and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So we got 10 games unaccounted for right now. We don't know when they're coming. We don't know what their launch dates are. Or if we do know what their launch date is, it's not before June. Whether it's Starfield didn't make it, Forza Motorsport didn't make it, Ark 2, Stalker 2, Silk Song. And people are like, well, that's not on the image. They said every game shown during this showcase is coming in the next 12 months. You can put a little asterisk at the bottom of your poster board that says, they're targeting this. Well, then don't tell people that if you're not going to make good on it. Like, why would you even do that? So 2023, we got this showcase coming up. What are you hoping to get from this? Because they've got a laundry list of games behind them right now that just didn't show up. It's going to be salt in the wound if they've got to talk about games that were supposed to already be out.
Before I answer that question, I have to respond to a stupid statement in chat by NextDoc 1851, right? I don't know if he's gonna be like, oh, I was just joking, bro. I don't know if you know this, but I have an 8-year-old, and I don't feel like spending $500 on an 8-year-old to play video games, so I have an S, and that's what he plays games on. The reason I don't have a PlayStation 5 is because it wasn't in stock, and then I bought a graphics card for my computer. So now I'm waiting for the upswing for the next PlayStation Slim or Pro. So it's not that I'm a fan of quality. It's I'm a family guy. I like to save money, so I bought an S instead of a PlayStation 5 for my 8-year-old who has an attention span of a flea. Sort of like you, Doc. You know what I mean? So
well, and the good news is The good news is they're unifying the SKU because they're going with there's going to be one version of the PS5. It'll have the external disk drive if you want it, and that'll almost assuredly drop price. So you might be able to get one this winter for $100 less.
Imagine that. Imagine being a customer and waiting for the updated product to buy the latest, greatest thing.
And you have a Series X. You bought both. You have a Series X and an S.
Correct.
Come on. There's no reason to be like that in chat. Not to a guest of the show. All right, go ahead.
If you're going to be stupid, I'll be a dick back. It's no big deal. Now, to answer your question for what's coming out from Microsoft, I think a lot of the games that are coming out that they didn't get out to us are these. And I hate that it sounds this way, but mid-tier games. It's these Redfall. I think Avowal is going to be this like mid-tier game as well. I don't think this is going to be the next Skyrim when it comes out, right? A lot of these games that Xbox is making and creating are these mid-tier games that are just good enough to fill Game Pass, because this is everything to Microsoft. Put as much content on Game Pass once a month. Like, if you look, right, a lot of people look at the games that are coming out and go, that's trash. I don't want to play that. I'm waiting for the next big triple title. But every month, they're putting 3, 4, 5 games on Game Pass, right? And the more they're developed, because I think they have 38 studios now. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But I think they have 38 studios, first-party title studios. And they can take their sweet time, or they can just put them out and then fix them over time because, look, Redfall's coming out pretty bad. What was that other game that just came out recently that was first-party title that wasn't good for them? It was
Minecraft Legends?
Was that having problems? I don't think it has problems.
It doesn't have very good scores anywhere.
Well, no, I'm saying problems as far as like glitches or bugs or anything like that. It was a finished game. It's just not a very
a first-party Xbox
game.
title? I can't. They release so few, it's hard to remember.
Right. See, they're hard to remember. But anyway, they have Hi-Fi Rush that came out, and that was good. That had good scores.
Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush did great. Yeah,
great game. And when I say mid-tier game, I'm not trying to insult Tango Games but what I'm saying is it's not a AAA title game. It's just a game they put out. People are going to play it. 3 million, 5 million, whatever. That'll play it. Now buy it. Play it, and then so on and so forth. So I think that's their strategy. Get as many game companies as possible to make these mid-tier, have a place for indie games to come out, and then, 3 times a year, have a AAA game come out once they have everything aligned. Because, again, they have 38 studios. With Activision, they would have like 48 studios or whatever it is. So that's what I think. I think that's quantity over quality to put on the Game Pass, and the games that we're not getting, like Fable is going to be that AAA game that comes out, I don't know, 2025, 2026, whatever it is when it comes out. But that's their game plan.
Were you thinking about Ghostwire having problems on the Series X?
That's it. Yeah, Ghostwire.
Right. That's a weird one.
It's a first party, but not a first party because they bought it, and yeah.
Yeah, Xbox just is having a really hard time because, they bought Bethesda and then Ghostwire comes home to their platform and doesn't run as well as it did on the PS5. Like, huh? What's going on? And then we got Redfall launching without 60 FPS. Did you see the sticker they're having to put on the jewel case?
For Redfall?
Shut up. Oh my gosh. Everybody's mad about Jedi Survivor's Day 1 patch. At least it's not a sticker on the jewel case. Anyways, as a Series X owner, right, I asked you, what do you want from this, Xbox showcase? I tell you what I want. I want dates. I want release dates. You show me another calendar. Look, man, I like Phil Spencer. I think he's a handsome man. I think he's done the best he could with a bad situation, all right? I like Phil. I've defended Phil before when people called him a liar. I was like, the man didn't lie. He's a brilliant wordsmith, and you're just kind of stupid, okay? He's like, your stupidity ain't on Phil, all right? But I'm going to tell you something, Phil. I'm going to tell you something, Xbox. I want dates. You show me another calendar that's like, here's what you can expect in the next 12 months. I tell you what you can expect from me for the next 12 months. I'm not going to pay attention to anything unless you have dates. I'm not going to look forward to anything unless you can tell me the date something's coming out. The trust isn't there.
Right.
Like, the confidence is not there. And my biggest concern is is from where I sit, Redfall's being rushed to market because they knew we're going to have 10 something games that aren't going to make it. We got to have something for the first half of the year in addition to Hi-Fi Rush, right? And so if they start doing that with their other titles, I'm getting nervous because I'm looking at Hellblade 2 saying, don't you dare shove that out before it's ready. You keep your hands off Hellblade 2. I don't care about your Game Pass funnel. I don't care about your cadence of games right now. I've continued to say they need a better cadence of games, but if they're not ready, that's not a better cadence of games. It just isn't.
Right. But this is why I'm saying quality or quantity over quality, right? They don't care if it's not done because there's so many games that are on Game Pass. As long as they put a brand new one out, that's to bring other people in, right? Like, what's to stop people right now? The protection of consumers is terrible, right? You buy a game for $60, $70, you play 2 hours, you're not getting your money back, right? So you buy these games for $70, and if you're on PC right now, Jedi Survivor is having terrible reviews, right? Mostly negative. It's running like absolute, poo-poo. Okay, for the clean version of the show. And if you paid hard-earned money for that, or you paid $120 for Battlefield 2042, or you paid $70 or $120 for Cyberpunk when it came out, so the alternative now is they do the exact same thing those companies did, where they're putting a game that's not finished out, but now it's on Game Pass. And they're like, well, I paid $10. And you pay that $10, and you're only out $10. I know it sounds terrible, right? But you're not out $120. You're not out $70 unless you get that pre-ordered with the statue and the steel book and whatever else. But the people that are playing the game, if they don't like it, they put it down. And if they're having a bad time, they can come back in a month from now when they do a patch. You see what I'm saying? They don't care. And this is me not defending them. This is me telling you how the industry is working. They don't care that the game is broke, buggy, unfinished. They're going to put it out regardless. And instead of getting $70 up front from you for that game that's broken, buggy, and then lose confidence, you're like, I'm not buying that game again. You're like, it's $10. There's 400 games I can play, right? And you move on. And if you don't want that, there's an alternative. You can go spend your money on a PlayStation and buy that $70 first-party title game and enjoy yourself because, for the most part, all those games that come out are solid. They're rock solid.
It's really strange because as you're talking, I almost envision this being similar to how microtransactions work, where you buy V-Bucks, right? And then you use those V-Bucks. So you don't feel that separation with your money. It's the classic casino tactic. Oh, it's chips. It's not, if you were setting down $100 bills, you might slow down at that poker table or the blackjack table. You'd be like, well, I'm going to take my money and go buy dinner. But it's this weird inverse of that where I didn't pay for the game. So if it's bad, I don't feel any sting from that. It's so odd. It's like people have been numb. They've been numbed to the fact that, if the game's bad, they can shrug at it and say, well, at least I didn't have to buy it. And I'm like, that's not the motto.
The
that
problem
I would
is
want
the broken games. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Is that the motto for Game Pass? Is every time you play a subpar game, you're like, well, thank God it's on Game Pass. That's not an endorsement. Looking at Redfall, I saw people saying that. They're like, well, it's not a big deal. It's on Game Pass. They'll fix it later. I'm like, oh my gosh, you've been inoculated. You don't even feel it anymore. You don't feel the pain. You're like, I didn't pay for it. So, but you're paying for Game Pass.
Did you play Dead Island 2?
No.
Okay. I got a code for Dead Island 2. I'll be upfront about it, right? I got a code last week. I played the game, and I started playing it, and I had fun, but I was like, this is a Game Pass game, right? This is a Game Pass game. This is not a $70 purchase, right? And people, if you liked it, by all means, enjoy your $70 that you spent. I didn't pay any money for it, and I looked at it and went, I would not pay $70 for this game. Max, I would pay $40 for this game, and then on sale. But that game is a Game Pass game, right? And that's what it's come like. Would you rather buy a $70 game that's mediocre, subpar, and spend $70, or would you rather buy a mediocre subscription service for $10? Both of them are wrong, right? Because the quality of the game is just bad, right? They're not to the standards of what it's supposed to be. They're coming out broke, buggy, unfinished, patch day 1, patched month 1, patched 6 months, right? And they fix it over time. And so as a consumer, you either don't buy the broken game up front and wait for reviews and wait for people to like yourself or me to tell you that this game is not good, save your money, hold back for a bit, or you buy it up front and get disappointed and go, I'm not buying this game again from this company. And now they already have your money. It doesn't matter if they fix it, right? Because they already have your money. And then you're waiting for the next game to come out. Hence the leftover of Fallout 76, right? Everyone's shitting on, crapping on Starfield, okay, because of what happened to Fallout 76, right? That's their next big title, and they're just waiting. Everyone's just chomping at the bit because they don't want it to be the next Fallout 76 with bugs and problems. And then everyone starts to joke that it's Bethesda, it's going to have problems, it's going to, and so on and so forth.
Well, and Brutal Gear is saying, and I did want to thank Jeeves for the $2 super chat. He was clarifying a percentage point that somebody got wrong in chat. Thanks for the super chat. And guys, make sure you're smashing like. That's a great way to support the video. And I will give you the members that I owe you in a little bit if you want to become a member. We got a great members thing coming up later today. 2 big things, but I want to respond to what is being said in chat from Brutal Gear. He says, isn't it worth it as long as Game Pass has at least 3 AAA games a year? Anything beyond that is just nice. I understand the math crunch there of like, if you get 3 really good AAA games a year on Game Pass, you're ahead. Right? Especially now that games are going up to $70. Imagine spending $70.
You're saving money, right? You're saving money.
Imagine spending $70 on Redfall, though. Literally, look at that game, okay? That game is it's a $70 game.
It's not a $70 game, right?
Golly. Okay, but $70, that's $210 a year if you buy 3 $70. You buy Redfall and you buy Starfield and Forza Motorsport, you buy all 3 of those games, it's $210, right? And you're like, I'm saving money.
And that's in America, by the way, not other countries.
Right. What if, just what if, what if I spend that amount of money on PlayStation? What if I spend that on Final Fantasy 16 and Spider-Man 2, and maybe I waited to buy God of War Ragnarok, right? Maybe I waited. And so within a 12-month period, I spent $210 on those 3 games, okay? If I look at my 3 games, and I look at your 3 games, I feel like I made a better choice. Now, that's subjective, I know. You spent less money than me, and here's the kicker. I feel like you got what you paid for. And that is totally fine. If you want that lower price entry, if you want that lower price, that lower commitment, that's fine. But I don't think you're going to get the quality that I'm getting when I go to the platform that says it's $70 and you're going to pay it and you're not going to feel bad about it. If I went to Xbox and I paid $70 for Redfall, come on. No one's going to walk away from that and feel like, yeah, that was a pretty good deal. Because a lot of times people only buy 1 or 2 games a year anyway. So maybe they buy Redfall, maybe they buy Starfield, and then they're done. Well, then they don't need Game Pass. They want that passive income. But the point I'm making is that I think as a consumer, I'm just different than the people that all they care about is saving money. That doesn't translate into fun in the video game. I'm not like, ooh, baby. I spend less money, so the game's more fun. Like, free food tastes a little bit better, but go to a steakhouse that's 5-star and world-renowned and drop $80 on a ribeye and tell me that it doesn't taste better than the free steak your friend made you, okay? Like, when you go to the premium shelf, you know it. And that's the point I'm making, is just because I saved money doesn't suddenly translate into more value and more fun in the video game. Like, this whole ABK deal thing. Like, they were just going to put games already coming to market on Game Pass. What, were they going to be more fun because you spent less money? Like,
right. So real quick, I want to answer Mike S. in chat. He's asking me what game did I play on Game Pass that I love so much that I paid full price for to support the devs. The way I look at this, and a lot of people are like blinded, that they think if they buy a game or a microtransaction from a AAA studio that they're supporting the devs, right? The devs get support. They make their money. They get their paychecks every week when they come in and make the game, and they're there for 3 years, or independent contractors. They get their games. The stuff that you buy after the fact, of course, they make bonuses and stuff like that. The stuff that you buy after the fact is going to the company, is going to the pockets, is going to the investors, is going to all the other people. Tim in the booth is not getting extra money because you bought a microtransaction or whatnot from it. So when you ask me that question, the reason I bring that up is I support smaller developers, right? So, for instance, Minecraft Dungeons is a smaller studio, okay, that made it. Yes, it's a big conglomerate, it's still part of Microsoft, but I paid full price for Minecraft Dungeons, right? And I bought all their DLC after that. Another game I bought off of is Hi-Fi Rush, right? Hi-Fi Rush is a studio with 65 people, and I like the game so much that I purchased Hi-Fi Rush after I played it for like 6 hours. I was like, you know what? I really like this game. They did a really good job. I'm gonna pay for that up front, right? There's certain games, they might have been third-party games. I bought Outriders. I didn't play Outriders on Game Pass. I bought Outriders because I wanted to support them. Okay, so there are games. It's not about if I loved it or hated it. There's certain games like Retromania Wrestling. It's an independent. It wasn't on Game Pass, but I like independent companies that are small studios that I'll support them because I know they're getting the money. And if they're on Game Pass and they're a smaller studio, they probably got the money already up front for a big chunk of the change to make their money back. And if there's no microtransactions or anything in that game, then I might purchase that game as well. But I'll be honest, as a father and with with expenses and everything going up, I don't want to bring in real life, but I don't have all the money to spend on all of these games. So as a father and a gamer, right, I just bought Jedi Survivor. I bought Hogwarts Legacy. I'm going to buy the games that I'm interested in to play, but for majority of these games, because I'm a streamer and talk about games, Game Pass is fantastic for me because I can try the game out, play the game, put it down. And because I'm not a big streamer, I don't get codes from a lot of companies and stuff like that, right? So I have to either purchase the game or get a service where I can get the game for a cheaper price and then try the game, play the game, and then talk about the game. So that's my point of view for that. And I hope that answers your question, Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to grab 2 comments from chat. Thrifty PS Gamer Reviews. You guys got to check out Thrifty. I was on a podcast with him last night. Super dope guy. And he's definitely tugging at my Kentucky heartstrings here. He says, you absolutely get what you pay for. Woodford Reserve Double Oak Bourbon tasting a whole lot better than early times. Look, bro, I always got Woodford in the house. You knew how to get me to read your comment. Well played. Now, Valiant with a good question here. He says, do you think they're buying devs because they see a world where some devs might actively avoid Game Pass and create a premium funnel, which makes Game Pass the discount aisle? And I just think that's what this was, because Activision literally is out here telling you in the documents, the FTC's look at these documents, and Activision, they actively avoided Game Pass because it was going to be cannibalistic to sales, right? Yep. So it's like, we didn't go on Game Pass because we want to sell games. So Microsoft's sitting here saying, if the biggest companies, the biggest publishers, and the biggest devs, if they don't want to go on Game Pass, we got a real problem on our hands. We're only going to be able to put indies on here. And even Jez Corden recently in his Windows Central article, he said he's out here talking to indie and AA studios, and their confidence in Game Pass is waning. They're like, I don't know, man. We're only successful over there if we go on Game Pass, but if ABK goes through, Game Pass is going to be nothing but a funnel of Activision Blizzard titles. We're not going to get any attention over there. And what if your game's not conducive to Game Pass? Well, then Microsoft has no interest in you, and they're not going to promote your game. So why are you going to make your game for their ecosystem unless it can succeed on Game Pass?
Well, look at Netflix's model when they first started. Not many people wanted to go to Netflix because that model was, not emerging, right? And it was really hard for Netflix. But then they started getting the growth, and then everyone's like, "Oh, you couldn't find a real celebrity making a movie on Netflix." And now you look at Netflix; they have A-list celebrities all the time coming to make movies for them. They have comedians where you used to watch 1-hour shows on like Showtime or HBO back in the day for comedy specials. And now everyone's putting their stuff on Netflix, right? So I think the problem with Game Pass, it's still in its early stages. It's 5 years old, right? 5? Or is it 6 years, right? It's either 5 or 6 years, something like that. And I think a lot of people are looking at, well, not enough people are getting in on it. And I think they're at the verge. This is a starting platform, right? This is a new entry into the gaming space. Steam's been doing it for years as far as digital and whatnot. I mean, you're not paying a subscription to be on Steam, but you have all your digital games there. So that kind of took the blow off of people buying digital games, not owning games and whatnot. And now Xbox is doing this with Game Pass. So I think it's going to take time. I think right now we look at it and go, this is a failing market. This is not going to work. This is not going to financially work for them. But I think they're like 10, 15 years behind the streaming services of video and film and radio and not radio, music and stuff, right? So I think if we give it another 5 years, I think we'll have a completely different conversation and see this market is actually huge. And I think that's why the CMA, going back to that, is why they're putting a halt to this, because they're like, well, hold on, we want to make sure we have enough technology to get in on this, because it is going to be huge, and right now we can't see that.
Well, and being handed some food here for my wife, thanks, babe. The thing about mentioning how like Activision actively avoided Game Pass, okay? Somebody says, well, can you blame them? Well, no, because they're in the business of selling games. They're not in the business of getting a fat check and then that's it. They know their game's going to sell really well. It's like you can't write a check big enough. So the question that you have to ask is Microsoft trying to do something that's antithetical to the market itself? Because my theory is that when they almost shuttered the division and they had a plan to get out of this, if you go back to when Xbox institutes Game Pass, it's right around the time that Netflix is having this big explosion. So it's hard not to see like a coalescence there. They looked and saw, oh, what if we become the Netflix of gaming? What if we do that? Well, what they didn't realize is there was going to be a bubble. There was going to be a burst for Netflix because they were dumping money into first-party content and then having to kill it on its second season. So I'm looking at Microsoft thinking, there has to be another angle here. You can't just have Game Pass being this loss leader. You can't just have Game Pass being this, we're just going to keep dumping money into first-party property, because they've already said that the subscriber number has stagnated. And then they said, we see opportunities for Game Pass to grow on PC. Right. So it's almost like they've been dropping breadcrumbs the whole time. We don't consider Sony competition. We're going to be competing with Amazon and Google. Yeah, we see Game Pass having more growth opportunities on PC. And then you talked about it just a moment ago. Oh yeah, we got Game Pass in all these other places. We have PC Game Pass in all these other places. It's like, it's almost as if they've been saying the entire time without saying it that we're going in a completely different direction. And the Series S and the Series X, I think maybe we've been misunderstanding the Series S this entire time. The Series S is the console. That's what they're selling you. They're selling you a low-cost access point, because cloud and creating an ecosystem, like that's their end goal. I don't feel like their plan to have top-shelf next-gen games, I don't think the Series X matters to them at all.
I 100% agree, right? I said this years ago when they came out and they announced the S and X. And then we had what happened in the world where everyone had to shelter, right? And I said, don't you find it a little weird that the S is in stock everywhere, but the X you could not find, okay? Well, the S doesn't have a disk drive. The only thing that you have the S for is that you have to buy digital from their Microsoft store, or you get Game Pass, right? You have no other option. You can't do anything to get it out of there, right? The X, they just made a small market because they knew the hardcore gamers, the percentage of hardcore gamers that would buy the X, right? Keeping up with the Joneses, that they would buy that because of the high power sold to you as a 60 frames up to 120 frames per second console with 4K, right? You, me, everyone else that bought one wants that experience, and that's a small market. That's a small, minute market. The S, everyone's like, well, I can't get an X. Well, let me buy an S, right? I looked at the S and said, that is perfect for my son, because he can't buy anything or put anything in there unless I know about it, right? So that's why I think the S is what it is. Yes, it's the crappier box in the Trojan horse for Xbox, or is it? Okay, it's the Trojan horse because it's the box that gets you in to their ecosystem of digital goods, and that's where they want you to be. They're trying to sell Game Pass. They're not trying to sell consoles. I've been saying this till I'm blue in the face since before we even heard that they were coming out with the systems and they had Game Pass. I was like, this is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. They're not trying to sell you these high-end games. They're trying to sell you a service, and they can't make that service too awesome, because they want to keep the price where it is, And if they give you awesome stuff, they're going to have to change the price of that. So right now it's in this like really sweet spot where you're getting a really fantastic deal for the amount of money that you're getting and the mid-tier games that you're getting. And again, when I say mid-tier, I'm not saying all the games are crap, because there's a lot of good games on Game Pass. If they're older games, if they're third-party games, there's lots of content on there. If you're a gamer, it's an insane deal to be on there. But I want to make sure you guys know I'm for what Sony's doing. I've always been what Sony's doing as far as the way they do it. Put God of War out there, let it run its course, and then 6 months to a year later, put it on your service. Let that game breathe for your first-party titles. Do not put it... I'm afraid that the industry is going to hurt just like it hurt the film industry and stuff like that. And everyone's going to tell me it didn't hurt the film industry. I worked in the film industry for 20 years. It hurt the film industry with the streaming services, because that is the bargain bin. That is the straight-to-home video. That is the straight-to-TV movie that you don't want to work on. Okay? Like in the industry, if you're working on a feature film, that's credit, baby. You're like, I'm working on a feature film. I'm working on a blockbuster film. When you're working on the Hallmark Channel, or you're working on a TNT movie, you're like, oh yeah, no, I don't put that in my credits, because you don't want people to know that you're working on that straight to DVD kind of videos. You want the AAA stuff. You want the blockbuster stuff.
Sean Murray with a $10 super chat tip says, I highly disagree that they're only doing the Series S. Game Pass is an add-on. You can still buy games outside of Game Pass, and a lot of Xbox players do. I wasn't saying that they're just doing the S. It's just the Series S has outsold the X. Price point and supply was better. Why? What would be the point of that, right? Why would we have that? What would be their reasoning behind that? And here's the other thing to consider. You're saying, oh, you can still buy games outside of Game Pass. You can, Game Pass isn't just the only way they make their money. And you know what's funny is you're actually right, because they said in a document, I think it was the documents that came out of Brazil, that Game Pass only amounts of like 15% of the gaming revenue. That's not a lot. So you really have to ask, why would they put so much focus on it then? Why would you take something that cost you as much as Redfall and Starfield cost you, okay, as an acquisition of $7 billion? Why would you take that and throw that onto something that's not even generating that much of your revenue every year? 15% of your gaming division's revenue is Game Pass. Why are you putting so much focus on it? That to me is exactly the point I've been trying to make, is there's a bigger plan. There's a bigger plan in place. You can't take all of your showcases, all of your trailers, and all of your games and go, day one Game Pass, day one Game Pass, day and date, day and date. You guys, they said day and date so much I had people saying it in my chat. They're like, like chanting it. I had people telling me that PlayStation was their premium service and their subscription service was dead in the water if they didn't do day and date. They're going to have to compete. I don't know if you're looking at any of the revenue reports. That's not an issue, okay? So if that's what they're going to push for something that's not amounting to a ton of their bottom line, there has to be a longer-term plan in play here. There simply has to be. And that's why I continue to say,
it's volume.
But I think their goal is to turn everything into Microsoft Office. They want to have so much of the game property out there and then put it behind a subscription fee. That's what they want. I don't think they want to be in the business of letting you buy games. I think that's the idea, is nope, you make everybody has to be on a subscription. Hold your thought. He just did another one. Sean Murray with a $10 super chat. It's because the Series S is cheaper and people are cheap. I'll be honest and tell you that people don't want to spend a lot of money on consoles or even PC pieces. That's only hardcore. If you look at the sales reports for Sony, what you're saying is demonstrably false. People don't have a problem spending money on consoles.
4-to-1 ratio. They're buying a $500 system.
That the PlayStation 5 is going to surpass PS4 sales rates, which is insane. I don't think that's landed on people yet, that the PlayStation 5 is on pace. It's outpacing PS4. That's crazy. Go ahead, Mike.
I lost my train of thought, what I was going to say. God damn it, what was I going to say?
I was talking about how there's got to be a bigger plan in play with Game Pass. It's not amounting to much of their revenue every year. Why would you be making it such a focus? Day and date was something that they threw out there.
What I was going to say is they have to be all in, right? Like, for instance, when you make content on your channel, right, you can't half-ass it, right? You gotta focus in on what you're doing and then dive into that and keep on that pulse, because that's what you want your brand to be, and their brand is Game Pass, right? So they're not going to go willy-nilly on this thing. They're going to go push hard day and date. Here's what we got. This is our lineup for the year. We got bigger games coming out. They leak out other games that they have coming out for years and years down the road that we probably don't even know if we'll see, like Fable and Skyrim 6 and Fallout 5. You know what I mean? Like they're tease you with these things that you're like, oh yeah, these are coming. They're coming. They put that carrot in front of you. But that's what they're doing. They're trying to get volume, as many games as possible on there, constantly rotating. You don't want to own anything. I learned my lesson 5 years ago when I got the games, and all of a sudden they shut the servers down. I'm like, well, I don't own that anymore. I was like, okay, so I don't own anything anymore. Even if I buy the game, I don't own it. It's just like living in the moment. I enjoyed it. I played it. I gave them money to it. To the company, fantastic. Move along, right? And that's what they're doing. They're conditioning you on not owning anything, not taking anything. You're just buying a subscription service, and you are right with the Office model. Game Pass down the line could be something completely different. Maybe at $10 you get what we get now, but then at sort of like what PlayStation's doing, right? With their tier model. All of a sudden at $20, you're getting something else, right? Like at 15, you get the Ultimate with the PC and the Xbox. If you just want to buy just the one, you get it for 10 or 8, whatever it is for PC. What about there's another plan coming out where AAA titles that come out day and date are the $25 model, and the games that are multiplayer on a subscription service are cheaper. Who knows? They can continuously change, and just volume. It's just volume. That's what Netflix is about, pushing out as much stuff as possible to get people coming back every single day, every single week, every single month, and that's what Game Pass is trying to do. You're spot on with them looking at the Netflix model and going, what about if we do that? And that's what they're trying to do, and they're all in. They can't give up on it now, right? They're too. It's like what's the cost fallacy, right? They've already dumped so much money into that thing. Yeah,
sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, so they can't give it up, right? This is their sunk cost fallacy. They have to keep putting into it to see if they can get out in the 7-year plan, 8-year, 10-year plan, whatever they have.
I just wonder, because so many people are thinking, oh, they're going to go third party, because with EA Play and Ubisoft Plus, could you envision a future where they say, we're not selling consoles anymore, and we want to put Game Pass everywhere? Like, could Game Pass, funny enough, Creature was always saying that, oh yeah, they could get Game Pass on Sony, and I'm like, they'd never do that. But if they're no longer the competition, and they're just another like batch of games and just another subscription thing, do you think that's even a remote possibility that we see that in the future?
Well, the problem is the reason Sony makes good games is because they have a competition. I know you guys say they're not competition, but there is competition there, and they have to make good games so you choose between Xbox or Sony or Nintendo. If Microsoft is completely gone, they put the app on Sony, isn't that detrimental to Sony itself? Their quality could drop as well, because if they have no competition, like look at EA with sports games, right? They don't have to compete with anybody. They just keep making the same Madden and the same soccer and they just keep doing the same thing over and over. It's a roster update. So if I look, and this is why I say it's bad for the industry. I don't just look at Game Pass and Microsoft and console wars. I look at it, if Xbox folds, Sony's the last one on the podium here. Does the quality drop for Sony? Because if they have no competition, why do they have to keep doing the production that they're doing, right? The quality will drop for that as well. So can I see Xbox on PlayStation? Sure. But do I want that to happen? I don't want that to happen. I don't want there to be one console. I want there to be competition and choice. And yes, Nintendo's still there, but Nintendo, again, is the birth to death ratio of consoles. And PlayStations that when you hit like teenage years, like middle school, you start playing PlayStation with the better games and the graphics, right? It's almost like a puberty, going into puberty kind of system. You know what I mean? So they're not competing on the same market. They're completely two different markets. And if Xbox goes belly up, then Sony, I think, can suffer as well.
I absolutely don't want that. I told people the other day that I'm genuinely starting to feel that sense of this could go in a direction that I don't want it to go. Because as a YouTuber, as somebody that makes video game content, I actually really want Xbox to have a comeback, because that's so much better for me. There's so many more games to talk about. There's so many more trailers to watch. There's so many more games to play. And if they continue on the trajectory that they're on, well, then I have less to talk about. I have less to cover. I have less to play. And as you're saying, that I don't want that for Sony. I don't want Sony to be like, well, no more Xbox. Great. Now, I don't think that means that Sony rests on their laurels and they're like, we don't really need to be aggressive anymore, and we don't need to. No, I think they would gobble up and they would become more dominant. I think we would still get quality games. But I think as time goes on, you would see a slippage. I do think in the absence of competition, there just wouldn't be that pressure to innovate, because Nintendo is rumored to have this Switch 2 on the horizon, and it's supposedly going to be stronger or better, but it's not going to compete with the PS5. It's not going to be a high-end piece of equipment. It's not going to be a next-gen piece of equipment, and so Sony would just be sort of alone on the field. I would never want that. I don't think that would be good for anybody. It wouldn't be good for the market. It wouldn't be good for the consumer, because you suddenly have way less to choose from. You have one company for high-end gaming. I actually think it's bad right now. It's super lopsided. It's like, even with Jedi Survivor coming out, it's like, so literally, unless it's like a first-party Sony title, it's gonna be trash. And not even that, because Sony ported The Last of Us to PC and it's garbage. It's like, what's going on right now? Like, anytime PC's included, is this what we come to expect? Like, like what's happening?
Creature says it wouldn't happen if Xbox was gone, but it would. Like, PlayStation wouldn't need to get the exclusives to get the 6-month early or get that extra mission inside there or anything like that, right? The reason they do those things is to entice you to go play on their system. Like, hey, we have the same game as these guys, but we have more, right? Like, these things would be gone. Like, the industry itself would kind of like fold under. Like, who's the competition, right? As much as the Xbox fans hate Sony and Sony fans hate Xbox, you guys are all, and I don't know why you would be a plastic, box lover, right? That just seems weird, but you want competition. Competition helps each other. There's always got to be a crappier object compared to the other thing. Google is the higher tier browser, right? All the other browsers, you can still search the internet, but Google's the king, right? There's other videos things out there, but YouTube is the king. There's other sources out there, but there's other things that are the leader of the market, and they need the competition. If there was no competition, then you would have really crappy products on the one thing that you are using. Hence why the cable companies suck. Hence why the phone companies suck, because you're stuck with the one provider. They don't need to make it better because they don't have to. And that's where I look at it and go, I don't want the gaming industry to be this way.
Yeah, perfect image with a $2 super chat tip says Sony will not lose. It's been there since Dreamcast. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about no longer having a competitor for them. I want Microsoft to stay in the dadgum ring. I want Microsoft to put their gloves on, tie their shoes, and get to work. Like, this acquisition was not the right play. They should have been investing in their properties for the last 20 years. And you see Insomniac hit 520 employees. That's what I want to see. I want to see devs flourishing and growing and cranking out top shelf products. Spider-Man 2, I'm telling you what. That game is going to blow the doors off of the year. I firmly believe it. I don't think we've truly seen what Insomniac is capable of yet, because Ratchet and Clank was awesome, but just wait till you see what they're doing with Spider-Man 2. And then we have an 8-month renewal from Dusk6. He says, I was laughing when people were trying to say that you have an Xbox to seem balanced. Only thing balanced about this man is his coffee's acidity. I know people were giving you crap about that, Mike. Like, well, why'd you buy a Series X? There were no PS5s available. Didn't that tell you something? What do you mean, didn't that tell us something? In the early stages of this generation, I was excited for both consoles. The Series X marketing had me so excited. I remember applauding the Microsoft marketing. I'm like, they're talking about frames per second. Oh my gosh. I remember screaming about that. Like, we always used to get resolution. And as somebody that wants FPS, I was like, they never talk about FPS. And here we sit. Series X, after I bought it, I'm like, what in the world? Because like Eugene put it in chat. He's like, I used to have 2 platforms that were developing solid third-party and AAA games, or I'm sorry, solid first-party AAA games. Now I have 1, and it's infuriating. It is. Yeah. It's like my Series X is a Game Pass machine, and that's not even been that impressive lately. Like, I'm bummed, and I think Brutal has a good question. Brutal Gear says, if Xbox falls, could this make room for a PC console? The Steam Deck has been successful. I don't know if that would even be possible because you need a pretty big household name to pull that off. Like a PC box for your living room. Like,
Abe, I don't understand. You're saying that I didn't know the S was going to be. I bought the S for my son. I don't understand what the. Have you never bought your child something because they wanted something? Was I supposed to buy him the most expensive PC known to man where he doesn't know how to operate, his thumbs? I mean, I don't understand.
What do you mean though? We all looked at the marketing. I had people in my chat one day saying that they were getting ready to buy a Series S based on the marketing. And then when the truth started to come out about the box, they were like, I almost bought that thing. Oh, Abe was being sarcastic. Okay, sarcasm is sometimes lost. I gave you guys Lono Kappa. You can use Lono Kappa when you're going to be sarcastic, dadgummit. But yeah, the marketing on the Series S, man. There were people in my chat that were like, bro, I almost bought one.
Here's how it works for normal people like me, normal plebs like me, right? I had $500 in my hand. I said, who wants it? I went to see if there was a PlayStation. PlayStation didn't exist because they were shorthanded. Then I went, okay, Xbox Series X is here. I'm going to buy that. Then 8 months later, I had another $500 saved up. And I went, who wants my money? PlayStation still wasn't a thing. And I went, oh, you know what? I'll buy a graphics card. So I bought a graphics card instead. Now I'm saving up my money. $500. Who wants my money? Right?
Right.
If it's in stock, I'm going to buy it. See, I play where I want to play, when I want to play, with the games I want to buy. That's it. I'm not in love with an Xbox. I'm not in love with a Sony PlayStation. I'm not in love with the Switch. I'm in love with gaming. I love gaming. And the reason games are shittier now than they were, again, sorry for the cursing, they're bad now is when I was a kid and when you guys were younger, there was a lot less people playing video games. They had a lot more, less stringent graphics and whatnot, and they could pump out these games, and there was a lot of bad games. So much so that some games didn't even have endings. They were so hard on the fact because they were hard because there was no end to the game, right? So they made you quit the game because it was impossible to actually beat the game, okay? Now, there's bigger games. They have to get them out. There was an article I read yesterday from a guy that made Cyberpunk, one of the developers on Cyberpunk. He said that AAA games are in trouble. He says it's like running at a wall and we're going to crash because they're getting too big, too expensive, right? And there's no other room for growth for these AAA games because they're just so outrageously big and gorgeous that they can't keep up with it, and sustainability is unsustainable, right? So that's the problem with games now. It's a billion dollar industry. It's bigger than anything else out there, and they have to get as many games out because our attention spans are so much shorter, and they have to try to get these games out as fast as possible. And yet when they come out, there's bugs, glitches. They're supposed to be in the oven for like 5 years, but they're only in there for 2, and then they have patches for the next 3 years. That's the problem with a lot of these games that are coming out. Not everybody. There's still those companies that have good moral values that they're trying to make a good game, art piece of game, and put it out there and sell it for you to get your hard-earned money. And then there's other people taking advantage of the system going, yeah, let's put it out there. Let's put it in alpha, early access. Let's put it out as gold, and it's still in early access and beta. That's the problem with the video game industry. It's too big for what it is.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like, I remember we had a debate yesterday, and it even kind of came up last night, like day one patches, and people are getting all upset about day one patches. And I'm like, these games are so much bigger than they used to be. You want to be able to preload it. You want the disc to show up to your house the day it comes out, right? That means you're going to have day one patches. Like there's just no way that they're not going to do that unless you want games just indefinitely get delayed to where like, okay, we finally have a game that requires not a single update ever again. Now, I'm not excusing what's going on. With games like Jedi Survivor, because it's like that game just wasn't ready. Like it's passable on my PS5, but that thing is.
I haven't played it yet. I'm playing that tonight. on the X.
Okay, you should be okay on the X. It's abysmal on PC. It's getting shredded to the point that people are like, don't buy it on PC. Like, if you buy it on the PS5 or the Series X, I think you can eat around some of the issues.
What did they do for these 6 extra weeks, though? They had 6 extra weeks to work on them. What did they do?
I think they baked something into this game that's causing problems with the textures, because why else would the install size be so stinking big? 150 gig? Like, why?
Yeah, I think it's 100. It was 140 when I downloaded it, but then with the updated patch, it was like 133, I think it was.
Rasta Carp with a $25 tip says, if Xbox dies, Sony could be accused of a monopoly. No, they couldn't, because you still have Nintendo in the market. And what do you mean? A monopoly of what? Like, what exactly? Their product? Like that? Like, what are they a monopoly of? They just did a really good job selling their product. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. Like, if Xbox leaves the gaming system, you can't be like, yep, de facto, Sony's now a monopoly. Like, that's not how that works, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. What did someone say in chat? I find this funny because you guys always give crap to the Series S, right? Because it doesn't hit the 60 frames. It's the Trojanhourse for Microsoft. And yet here are the PC master race gamers, man. They're paying $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 for their PCs, and they can't hit 60 stable frames with certain games. That's got to be heart-wrenching, right? Like, you paid that much money. Like, someone that paid $250 for an S is not expecting 4090 graphics. You know what I mean? Like, with the running of 120 frames per second. At least they're going, yeah, I paid $250 for a console. I paid $500 for a console. You've paid $2,000 for a console, and you can't hit 60 frames per second. You're gonna hear from me, because that's infuriating.
Well, and I think that's the weird. I don't know where we are right now. I don't know what's happening, because like some games are coming out, and they're great. They're immaculate. Like, even when I've seen people, everybody's trying to rewrite history. I saw somebody trying to claim that like Returnal was broken at launch. It's like, no, it wasn't. There was a bug if you like wore the DLC outfit, and I think there was a bug in like one of the biomes. Like, it wasn't broken. Like, okay. And then like Horizon Forbidden West, I think, had some pop in. They patched like a week later. God of War had something that needed to patch within like a week. Largely those games, they were fine. And funny enough, Halo Infinite's campaign lacked features and stuff, but it wasn't broken when it launched, and Forza was fine when it came out, and Ratchet & Clank was fine when it came out. And it's like, all these people that want to whine and complain and rail against first-party exclusives, and they're the most consistent. Like, they're the most consistent games. Like, all these multi-plat games keep coming out, and they're in terrible state. Like Plague Tale Requiem, Gotham Knights, and now we got Jedi Survivor. It's like multi-plat suddenly is falling on its face, and I would love to know the reason why. Like, what's the culprit? What's the culprit in the room? What's causing this?
I think it's the time. I don't know if this is it, but I think it's the timelines that they have for these games, right? Because they're making it for the PlayStation, right? Jedi Survivor's only on next gen, correct? It's only on next gen. It's not on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, correct? It's only on the next gen?
Jedi Survivor's next gen only, yeah. It left behind old gen.
So they're working on the 4, or I'm sorry, the 5, PlayStation 5. They're working on the X and S, and then they're working on all the graphic cards for PC, right? And I think the teams that are working and the time frame that they have is just too much for them, and I don't think they can optimize it. They're not giving their the companies are not giving their devs realistic timelines to flush and make these things happen on a realistic timetable. You know what I mean? I think that's the problem. And there comes a point where there's like a point of no return, where they delayed it 6 weeks, and now they thought they had enough time. They can't. Once you delay it 6 weeks, you can't wait till the fifth week and go, oh yeah, we're delaying it again, because that brings up a lot of questions. Then you're like, whoa, okay. 2 times in this amount of time, what's wrong with your game? And then it starts to other questions. Then they do the stand of, all right, well, let's just release it, and we'll just do a day 1 patch, and we'll see. And then they see who's going to complain and who's not going to complain. And if no one complains and no one notices it, then they're like, oh, good, we made it pass. We'll just get that patch out there next, right? I don't know. I just think there's not enough time for these devs, which is crazy, because if I know I'm going to put it in simplistic terms here, but if I'm drawing a picture, you pay me to draw a picture, Lono, right? And you're like, hey, I want this logo, I want this. How much time do you think it'll take? I'll be like, give me 4 days, right? Give me 4 days to come up with something, and I'll give you something. And you're like, all right, cool. But then, like, coming on to the 4th day, 3 days in, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to need another, like, 7 days for your drawing. You're like, okay, cool. Right? All right, better to be late than nothing. And you're like, okay. like, you know how long it takes you to draw a picture. You know how long, when someone asks you, how long is this game going to take? It's not like this is their first game. They've made other games. They have the assets. They have the other stuff. They have to know how long realistically this game is going to take based on what they have. And it seems like these companies don't. They just want to get it out as fast as possible because of the hype and get that money out. Get your hard-earned money up front.
Yeah, and people are saying, well, Horizon Forbidden West had a lot of issues when it came out. People always want to rewrite history. Horizon Forbidden West was critically acclaimed, and it sold really well. It had some pop-in issues. It did not have game-breaking problems. It wasn't crashing and people were like losing checkpoints. People weren't falling through the map. You didn't have constant frame stutters and screen tearing. Like, you know what I'm saying? It had some weird pop-in. It was fixed within like a week, okay? That's not a problem. You're not like, oh yeah, I can't play this game. Every once in a while, like the bushes and the monsters pop in. That's obviously immersion breaking. Like when pop-in and graphical issues happen, it's immersion breaking. There's a difference between something breaking immersion because you kind of can see the game doing something, like you see a texture pop in or a bush or an enemy pop in. That's not the same as playing a game that is not running correctly. Like it's stuttering and screen tearing and crashing. Like you get through a cutscene and it crashes and you lose your checkpoint. Like that's the stuff that's happening with Jedi Survivor. Like that's broken. Like you can't play that game. Like how you can't play a game that's doing that. And then when you have games that come out that are 30 FPS, it's like where are we? What happened? What happened to all that bluster and all those promises? Like that's, I think, the main issue is did the promise of 60 FPS and 1440 and 4K 30, did that promise go out there, and is that essentially only possible when you're going to go first party? As soon as you go multi-plat, it's like there's too many different configurations. That just doesn't seem like we can get there, because it's like all these multi-plat games. I'm looking at them and thinking these are the ones that are seemingly struggling the most with hitting those things right now. Like if you're trying to be next gen multi-plat, that seems to be one of the struggles.
Well, I'll go back to a drawing picture. If you hire two artists and one's drawing 3 pictures simultaneously and one's drawing 1 picture simultaneously, and they all have an hour to draw, the guy drawing 1 picture is going to be more detailed, right, than the guy drawing 3 pictures, right? Just by the nature, right? If you're drawing 3 pictures and drawing 1, if you're concentrating on that 1 picture, you can make that picture a lot better, a lot more detailed, a lot more textures and stuff like that. When you're doing the 3, sure, they can be detailed and whatnot, but they're going to lose the quality of the artist, because he's got to quickly do it and be faster at it. And I think a lot of the devs, and you guys are saying that the time management, you're calling false on that. And I'm going to take you from my background of film, right? In film, we break down the script, and we know that if it's a 100-page script or 200-page script, that we know how many shots and scenes we have to shoot every single day. And if you're on time, you can make your deadline that you're supposed to make. And if you can't, okay, you start to move stuff, and you're like, well, we were supposed to shoot two pages today, but we only did a page today, so now we have to shoot 2.5 pages tomorrow to make up for the loss. And then you get so far behind that you have to cut stuff. You just got to cut stuff completely. You're like, oh, we don't need this scene. You take it out. 100%, I know that happens in gaming. They're doing stuff with gaming, and they're like, well, we're starting to fall behind. What can we cut? What can we do? And that happens in gaming as well. So the management, the upper management, I'm not blaming the devs. The devs are doing their job, and they're being asked to do stuff, and they're doing their job, and the management is managing them to go, okay, you got to get this done, you got to do this, and they're not doing that. A lot of these companies have bad upper management. You see it all the time in the news stories, reports by Jason Schreier. And I'm not talking about the sexual harassment stuff. I'm talking about the actual time management stuff, and they're getting crunch time and all this stuff. That's a fact. This is what's happening. So I think a lot of it has to do that the games are getting too big. They're asking too much of these devs, right? if you look at Microsoft, their contract workers are only working 18 months. They have to fire other new people to come in. Then they have to train those people or tell the new people to come in what the last people were doing. You know what I mean? It's like it's not a smooth transition. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I think there's a lot of bad upper management inside the video game industry.
Yeah, Perfect Image with a $10 super chat says the reason Switch is winning is because one mini cartridge and all their games are story-based games. They don't have anything online. Sony and Xbox have good games, but seeing first is Monsters base. I'm not sure what the end of that sentence means. Ryan with a $5 super chat says many of Nintendo games currently are buggy. Pokemon Gen 9 is one of the best examples. Right, like Nintendo's not immune of having like buggy games launch.
Oh, no.
The Switch has its own share of like what in the world happen, and Doomslayer saying, you know, performance mode was bad in Horizon. The game looked blurry and grainy for 1.5 months. Lots of pop-ins. That's just simply not true. I played through Horizon Forbidden West from beginning to end in time to play Elden Ring. It didn't look blurry and grainy for a month and a half. Like, you're just saying things that are false. There were issues with pop-in. There was a pop-in patch within like a week or two. Like, performance mode wasn't bad or broken. Like, I played the whole game on performance mode. Like, I just think we're always trying to rewrite history. Like, oh, Halo was actually great. They just failed to deliver live service. That's not true. Like, and when I said Halo launched and wasn't buggy, I wasn't saying that Halo launched and was great. It just Halo Infinite didn't launch with like a bunch of bugs and problems because, you know, it was first party. It just seems that first party titles are having a better run right now. And the minute we get into multiplat, it seems like more of a challenge. And I would just love to know where the problem is. Are we still reeling from 2020 and working from home? Or is there something else in the room? Is there something else in the room that's causing this problem?
Yeah, growth. They want to make as much money as possible, and they can't do it. You know, it's funny because when I played Fallout 76 when it came out, I'm not kidding you. I had no issues, right? And I was watching like SkillUp's review and all these other people's reviews, and people were saying they're falling through the map and glitches and clipping and all this stuff. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. I played it for 82 hours, Lono. 82 hours. When I hit 82 hours, the game imploded. Okay, I got into my mech or my armor suit, and all of a sudden my guy got stuck in the suit. He vanished inside the suit. So when I lost a piece of armor, it looked like my guy had one leg hopping around, right? I couldn't get out of the suit to interact with the chest or take out any guns. Like, it was literally game breaking. 82 hours. Majority of the population wouldn't put 82 hours in before it happened. So a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm fine. I had no problems with the game. So there are minority of people that play a game and are like, yeah, bro, works for me and it's fine. But that doesn't mean there's not problems in the actual game because you didn't have any problems. Again, 82 hours in Fallout 76 and I had no problems. Meanwhile, everybody else, the world was falling apart inside there. So there is those little things that happen as well.
$5 tip from Dryad says Final Fantasy 16 seems to be doing something right. It's not out yet, so let's just be careful.
What's that? What's that?
Final Fantasy 16 is not out yet, so it's like, yeah, it looks great. So did Jedi Survivor. Like, Jedi Survivor apparently just they tweeted out an official statement, and they're saying, we're aware that Star Wars Jedi Survivor isn't performing to our standards for a percentage of PC players, in particular those with high-end machines or certain specific configurations. Listen, I never want to get out the bat and swing at something that was nice to me. Like, I got a code to play the game. That opening sentence is so... Don't even say anything if that's what you're going to say. That's not what the problem is. The problem is not just a percentage of PC players. The problem is not high-end machines and certain specific configurations. I'm playing a game on my PS5 and I was getting screen tearing. What is that? That doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't be getting screen tearing in a console game. The only time you get screen tearing, you get screen tearing when you're pushing the game beyond what your television or your monitor's refresh rate is. Like, what are you talking about? You
didn't pay for the screen tearing edition? That's you didn't pre-order that one?
It's not a percentage of PC players, and it's not just those with high-end machines. You think everybody downvoting the game on Steam just happens to have a high-end machine or a particular configuration? My PlayStation 5 is not a high-end PC. Now listen, as I said yesterday, I had so much fun with it, it didn't bother me. It wasn't game-breaking it. I was like, oh, this is a great game. I'm having a blast with this. But don't be sending out some tweet acting like this problem is specific to a small percentage of PC players with high-end machines. That's not it at all. That's not what's happening. There's something baked into this game that's bad.
I asked because someone said that everyone's giving it 9s and 10s, right? I have a true question, because I don't watch main media reviews anymore, right? And I know like Skill Up, when he does a review, or Matty Plays, he tells you like, I played it on this. This is my opinion on this. Like, I played it on the X, I played it on the PlayStation, I played it on the PC. Do other outlets, do they say what they played it on? Or do they just give the score of 9s out of 10s? Do they, in their articles and videos, I'm asking Chad, I'm asking you, Lono, do they actually, because I don't watch them anymore, do they actually say, hey, we played it on the PlayStation 5 and it's a 9 out of 10. We played it on PC and it's a 5 out of 10. Do they do that?
Sometimes they will say the version that they played on, and sometimes they don't. And I was asked in chat, was I playing the day one patch? I was playing with 1.02. I checked the version of the game before I booted it up, and I didn't have significant problems. It was playable, but when I played it on my TV last night, I got to the new planet. It's like a desert planet. It did look bad. I had no shadow. My character didn't have a shadow. Like, I was like, what? I'm on a desert planet, blazing sun, and I have no shadow.
It was immersion break. It was immersion breaking, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it looked bad. It looked like almost washed out. Like somebody had turned the gamma way up. It's because the HDR is like broken, I guess. I was like, I noticed it. I was like, this looks really bad. Like, it doesn't. Now again, the frame rate and screen tearing was minimal. I wasn't having any problems. It was running. I was able to play it, but it definitely did not look like a next gen game.
Yeah, chat. My question was made for the mainstream outlets, not for independent guys, like not YouTubers, right? I understand that big main guys do YouTube, but the question was for the main outlets, do they do it?
Next doc with a $5 super chat says, mentioned earlier how AAA games are unsustainable. Don't necessarily disagree. However, doesn't that point to how Game Pass is also unsustainable? Well, here's the thing. Yes and no. I think there's elements of AAA gaming that are showing sort of cracks in the surface. If you look at like the size of the budgets, and then if they don't sell enough quantity, then they're in a terrible spot, right? And I think tangentially related, Game Pass is unsustainable because you can't keep making big budget AAA games for it. I think Microsoft's strategy was, let's buy some of the biggest names out there. They're already in production. We can throw those. We can throw those onto Game Pass. It wouldn't have surprised me at all if part of their plan was, in a couple of years, they were going to shutter a lot of those studios and properties. They would have gotten their worth out of them, especially if you consider if we were really seeing beneath the hood and seeing, oh, their strategy was to go ecosystem cloud mobile. Their strategy was to move away from console gaming and next-gen gaming. If we're right, then a lot of the people cheering for ABK, now that you're sort of seeing behind the curtain, you think they're working for you. You think they're doing this for you, for your Xbox and your Game Pass? Right. No. You're going to get left behind. I don't think they're doing this for you. I think they're doing it for ecosystem cloud mobile. They want it. That's their goal. Remember, they said we're competing with Amazon and Google. We're not competing with Sony. And I think people got to remember that as they cheer for this deal right now. Yeah,
I don't care either way. Like I said, if the deal doesn't go through, I haven't bought a Call of Duty in a decade anyway, so I'm not worried about that. But like Diablo, if it goes through, I'm gonna buy Diablo because I'm interested in Diablo, and if it comes to Game Pass, I'm still gonna buy Diablo because I want to play Diablo, right?
Well, and it goes beyond Diablo because you have to think about they already got an acquisition, and this is one that should be concerning to a lot of people because one of their acquisitions, it touches a ton of games that we all love. Do you like Skyrim, Doom, and Fallout? Those are some pretty big titles. And they're all under Microsoft right now. If Redfall falls on its face, if Starfield has a bunch of problems and launches at 30 FPS, if it fails to garner flagship status the way that Halo Infinite did, I am extremely worried. I'm very, very worried because that's a lot of money for games that are gonna flop. Before you go, Sean Murray with a $5. Yep. Highly disagree. The goal of console, PC, and mobile, it's different revenue streams. Been listening for first time. Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and I've said that, Sean. I've said multiple times on past broadcasts that it's about the broad range of what Microsoft's trying to do. They're not just trying to get the one thing. They're pulling revenue in from all these different places. If it's the subscription model, if it's DLC, if it's microtransactions, that's what they're doing. God, my brain, I cannot keep straight. I was going to say something, and now I completely lost what I was going to say. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I forget.
Thanks for coming out. No, I was saying that if you think that you're cheering for this deal, they're gonna move away from gaming, and that's not good for the console gamer. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Okay, I was trying to jumpstart your brain again.
Yeah, it'll come back to me. I'll be like in car line later and pick up my son. I'll be like, oh, that's the point I wanted to make. Oh, well.
That's the thing. I had such a good point I wanted to make. Maybe it will come to you. Guys, I've gifted all the members I owed you. If you've been enjoying this show, man, smash that like button. And we're going to be going to a VIP-only end-of-the-week debrief. Mike's obviously always welcome to join us. If he would like to stick around, and Creature will join us as well. It's something that's only VIP, but I want to let Mike have the opportunity to talk to you. You guys want to support him. So many people tuning in today. We've been getting a lot of people tuning in for this segment, and we really appreciate it. So make sure and support Mike, 30NSG. He should be linked in the description below. I'm actually going to fix that because right now the @'s not connected. So while Mike's talking, I'm going to update the description. Mike, where can they catch you, and what kind of content you making right now?
You can catch me on 30NSG. I'm live Monday through Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning to 12 p.m. I am a stay-at-home dad, so I don't stream as long as Lono does. So I go out and do a bunch of different stuff. But the content I create right now, I do news stories. It's more of a casual, not as structured as what Lono does. He does a wonderful job with the conversations he has over here. And then in the evening, I do Let's Plays. So basically, I play video games in the evening, Monday through Thursday, or actually Monday through Wednesday. We play different games. We're going to be playing Jedi Survivor all this week, morning and evenings. So if you want to come watch that, come on by and have a chat. We talk about many, many different topics while I play video games. And then on Thursday nights is our flagship thing that we do is called Generation X Gaming, a weekly podcast that we go over a few of the top stories from the past week, and joined by my brother, my actual brother. We've been doing the show for 9 years, so come on out. It's a good time.
Well, the best thing for you guys to do is tune into those shows that he does, especially Thursday nights, because, why wouldn't you be there on Thursday nights? Which means if you can watch him on Thursday nights, you can watch me on Friday nights. We typically do a members-only thing on Friday nights. Tonight is community game night. So if you're one of those lucky people that got a membership this week, so many people got a membership, make sure that you are in our members-only Discord, or make sure you have notifications turned on this channel, because tonight we'll be playing Jackbox, community game night, and VIPs. They get the game code early. They can jump into the the Jackbox room early, and that's the only real thing that we typically do for VIPs. Everybody can tune in tonight. It's anybody that's a member can tune in tonight, and then tomorrow, Star Wars Watch Party. We're gonna be watching Episode 4, so we're gonna get into the good era of Star Wars now. we're leaving.
You mean actual Star Wars?
Yeah. Actual Star Wars. And if you want to be a part of that, make sure you're here tomorrow night as well. Make sure you have a way to watch Episode 4. I'll tell you how to queue up your video, and make sure you're here tonight. But right now, if you are a VIP or higher, you can join us. If you're not a VIP or higher, you can go to the membership tab or click the join button, go to the perks page, and upgrade to VIP. It's $5 to upgrade. It's a $10 a month thing. And we're going to go over here. It's an unfiltered debrief on the week. There's a link in chat if you prefer to use that. If you are not able to come with us, smash like on the way out. Get us to 500 likes. 700-something people here. I guarantee you there's enough of you that haven't hit like yet. Do that on the way out. It helps the video when it hits those milestones. I'm going to start the VIP thing in just a second here, and we'll pull Creature in. Thanks so much for being a VIP. If you are at a VIP membership or higher, this is the unfiltered debrief at the end of the week. 30's here. Maybe he'll be here every week. This might work out.
I'm just going to hang out for a little bit. I'll hang out a little bit.
Okay, he'll hang out for a little bit, and then Creature's going to jump on. We're going to debrief on the week. It was a wild week, man. CMA's blocking stuff. We had a lot of people suddenly not coming to the stream. I don't know why. I don't know why they suddenly weren't coming around, but they weren't. We're going to end the previous stream. Mike and I discussed the future of Xbox. So if you missed that, go back and watch it. If you're a VIP, make sure you're here tonight for the community game night. You'll get into the Jackbox game faster than everybody else. Hollow's flexing his VIP. So I'm going to end the previous stream and bring everybody over. I'm going to hit that redirect, and then I'm going to update that thumbnail to indicate that that show is no longer